I'm sure you have heard the term capsule wardrobe, and we too had a capsule wardrobe with our kids, but it was more like a time capsule. Like, I could tell how long the stacks of clothing had been on the couch based on the layers of sizes and holiday themed shirts that I would find in like the strata of like Mount Washmore that was always on our couch. Well, hello friend, I'm Mary Beth with At What Cost, where we are learning to apply God's truths to our everyday lives. And the best way that our family has learned to do that is by living a more minimalistic lifestyle. So I want to talk today about how I handle hand-me-downs in our house, and I certainly have some tips I think that you will find valuable. Before we get into that, I need to tell you a little bit of a backstory. So our family is just a little unique in that we adopted our 3 boys through foster care. I definitely had dreamed up in my head all of the things that I thought we would need as parents going forward. Y'all, it became very stressful to manage the amount of clothing that we had in our home. But on the other side now of minimalism, I have a very different view of just what our kids need, why they need it, and how we handle everything. The number one thing that has made managing our kids' clothes more successful in our home is to not solve problems until we actually have the problem. We had a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, but I anticipated that I could fill their wardrobes much like I filled my own. So I am a working mom, and I have a job that occasionally requires me to wear business casual and sometimes even a suit. And other times, because I also work from home full time, I can wear pajamas pretty much all day. So it really was difficult to figure out exactly what do my kids need, which leads me to my next tip. You know, I would prefer that my kids wore like khaki shorts and polo shirts, and they always looked like really snappy and well-dressed, just like we see in real life, right? Like, no, of course, that's not real life. What my kids actually prefer are gym shorts, sweatpants, and t-shirts, and the occasional hoodie. They love a good hoodie, and really, who can blame them? But in that initial gathering up of clothes, I was buying for what I preferred that they wore. The fact of the matter was, they just weren't comfortable in that. And so when I pared down their wardrobe, I had to be realistic about what they liked, what they preferred, and what we actually needed. My next tip is sort of along those same lines, and that is each of your children is different, but when it comes to buying clothes that are going to be versatile enough for you to use for several different children with different body types, is to buy the clothing that has an adjustable waist or just has somewhat of a looser fit. You can always cinch some of those things in if you need them to fit until they have grown into them, or if they're just shaped a little differently. And along those same lines, I avoid sets of clothes. You know, Carter's has some super adorable sets, but I've also found that the pants with those sets don't always have the adjustable waist, and they just don't always fit the same way that the other clothes do. Limit the size of the storage that you have. So over the years, things are going to break down. We think that saving clothing for hand-me-downs and saving everything in those just-in-case moments is like investing in our future. The problem is the returns on those investments aren't always that great. I have found that some clothing just does not store as well as others. The screen printing that has more of the puffy texture will oftentimes stick together, even in climate control, and it just rips apart then once you pull it apart. And the same goes for things that have elastic waistbands. They just don't hold up over the years. Clothes are continually depreciating in their value, and so storing them for those just in case crisis moments, we really want to limit so that we don't end up with a bunch of stuff that we have had taking up a lot of space in our home. We've forgotten that we have things in there. And so we end up either having to repurchase because they're damaged, or we end up repurchasing because we simply have more than we can actually pay attention to. No system is foolproof. So I had completely forgotten that we had a ridiculous amount of underwear that I actually packed into this box that's like a 6-7, and we just went like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago and bought him all new underwear because the ones that he had were too small. If I had just looked in the box, I should have known better. But it happens. I mean, I just will be able to bless someone with a ridiculous amount of underwear, which is still way less than we had the first time we purged. Like, random trivia, 42 pairs of underwear is how many pairs one of our sons had in his drawers. 42! That's more than a month. Too much. So let's talk a little bit about how I handle hand-me-downs in our home. So like I mentioned, our older 2 children are very close in size. So I'm just gonna give you their sizes for right now and tell you how we're gonna shuffle these things around. Well, our oldest son is going into a size 12. He is officially in a 12. He had been in a 10-12 for a while, but he has actually crossed that threshold where we need to go ahead and move him up into a 12. Our middle son is right now in an 8, and he is going to go into a 10. And our youngest son is in a size 6, and he is moving up into a size 7, which means when I take the 6s out of his dresser to put the 7s in there, I'm going to have an empty tote. And I need that empty tote because our other son is moving out of a size 8. So now that bin is going to become the storage area for... So as promised, I showed you in my community tab and in my Instagram and probably even on Facebook, like, this is the shirt 3 kids later. And this shirt was actually in pristine condition until number 3 here. So they really do hold up. Or that kind of in-between size that I have. Now, I don't store specific clothes for specific children. I store the next size. And I only store the size that I know that we are going to need. Now, the time may come that we do have more children. I don't anticipate that that will be the case, but you know, life just has a way of turning out in ways that we did not anticipate it to. But I don't save any of the clothing that our youngest son is moving out of unless it is more of a sentimental piece. And I have a bonus tip on that one. I don't save a whole lot of that stuff. We have the outfits that each one of them was wearing the first time that we had a meet and greet with them and we could actually like lay eyes on them. So I saved each of those outfits because essentially for us, that's kind of like a coming home outfit that you would typically save for your children when you bring them home from the hospital. And maybe a few other things that were just more special pieces, but for the most part, I don't save a lot of their clothing as sentimental items. Now, I should also mention that not this coming week, but the week after, we're going to talk all about sentimental items as part of the Clutter Free January collaboration that Dawn from the Minimal Mom has started. Last week, we talked kitchens. This week, we're talking clothing. Next week is everyone's favorite topic, paper clutter. Don't you just love a good paper clutter? Ugh. And the next one is sentimental items or storage areas. And so we're going to talk about both of those things coming up. Be sure to subscribe so that you can stay on this journey with me. And check out the playlist because it's amazing. In fact, I would recommend that even if you are going to do your own wardrobe or you're going to do your kids' clothes, that you turn that playlist on and just let it play in the background. I know for me, when I was initially doing the big purge and got rid of 11 totes of clothes, 11 totes, 11. Oh my gosh, so many clothes. I'm glad those days are behind us. You will be too. But I found it so encouraging to just turn on some of those videos as I was going through things so that I could continually get the motivation, because I did reach a point that I was like, if I have to look at one more t-shirt, I'm out. So once I have removed all of the clothing from his closet and his dresser, now I'm going to go to my storage bin. And again, I have one bin. His entire upcoming wardrobe is going to fit in one storage bin. And part of the reason that I keep it in one bin is because I only want to devote so much space to storing clothes. Clothes are super easy to come by between a garage sale, thrift stores, friends that you know that have kids that are older than yours. Trust me, y'all are gonna find clothes if you need them. Now, I'll give you another bonus tip. So when you're decluttering clothes, especially if you have a significant amount of clothing that you're getting rid of, one of the most helpful places that we donated to was to a local foster care closet in our area. And so you don't have to be part of the foster care system to do this. In fact, if you really love cataloging clothes and maintaining all of that inventory, like if that's just your jam, maybe you need to start one of those. There's always a need for those things in whatever area you're in. So with a foster care closet, parents can go and shop those areas either for a very reduced cost or no cost at all when they're having kids in. And so when they have placements that come in, if those kids don't have enough clothing or any clothing at all, which unfortunately is most often the case. So I'm going to take my bin here that I am storing all of the upcoming size in. And now, because I emptied out all of those drawers in the closet, I have a place to put all of the clothes that I'm pulling out of here. Now, as I'm going through these, I'm just double checking and making sure that there's nothing in here that I just absolutely know is not going to fit him, like a slim fitting jean or, just some of those things that I know he doesn't really like or want to wear. Once that bin has been emptied, now I can shuffle the size that our middle son is coming out of into that bin and store it for next year when our youngest son is going to be moving into that size. Now, inevitably, even though I do a pretty good job managing their wardrobes and I am very particular about just how much clothing we have, we still have things like souvenir shirts or shirts that come home from school, different things that they have made. And so I always sort through that size to take out anything that may need to move into a memory bin, stuff that is just not in good condition anymore, or things that I just know they're not going to wear. Like we had one particular shirt that every child that wore it, it fell off of their shoulder. It was just the way that it was cut. It was just annoying. And I should have gotten rid of it after the second child, but sometimes, we're hopeful that things will be different the next go round, and lo and behold, it was not, and I ended up getting rid of the shirt anyway. So if there is something in that wardrobe now that you are just like, I cannot stand this piece of clothing, go ahead and get rid of it at this point. You don't want to have to deal with that on the other side. So then once that clothing is out of there and I have sorted out all of the size 10s that my older son has now outgrown and will be moving to our middle son, that space is open and available and ready for that clothing to move into that. Now, our oldest son is always a little tricky, and that's why I don't start with his drawer. So he, as the oldest, he has certain luxuries. So he is the only child in our home who actually gets to start with pretty much a brand new wardrobe all of the time. And I invest in those clothes. Now, I typically buy 2 or so brands. Occasionally, I will buy a few other different things here or there, but for the most part, I have been through several different brands of clothing and I know which ones work for our kids. And they're a little pricier, but because I'm able to pass them down through 3 different kids and they really do last through 3 different kids, I don't mind spending the money up front because I know that I am going to get the return on that particular part of the investment now that I have some experience with our kids, how they wear their clothes, and what I'm actually going to be able to pass on. So our oldest son tends to grow just a little bit faster than our middle child. And so there are some times when he needs to kind of be moved up a size, but he's not quite out of the other size. And so his wardrobe does tend to be just a little mixed. So this is the only place that I really end up having to do a little bit of sorting and shuffling. But now, because I have systematically gone through all of the different sizes and shuffled everything into the different places, I don't have piles of clothing laying around trying to figure out what I'm going to keep or what I'm not going to keep. I have my storage bin right here ready to go. And when they move into the next size, I just will continue on with the process. If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to hit the like button below and consider subscribing if you have not already. You can watch the next video in this series by clicking the playlist right up here. And if you'd like to see more about how we acquired our kids' foster care wardrobe, you can click the video right here. And of course, the subscribe button is right over here. So be sure to click it right here, that one. That one right there. Yep, click that one. Yep, there, no, yep, that's the one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.